It's so good to see everyone. It's a little cloudy in my part of the world, but it's all good. So, the title of what I wanted to share today: The Day the Abuse Stopped. This is a hard one for me to share, but it's necessary because I believe that there may be others who might need to hear it. So, I was a fairly young mother. My first child was born when I was about 24 years old. And I was an angry woman. I was frustrated, and I had a very low tolerance for anything. And I was a businesswoman, so I was out and I was working, and it was pretty cool. I was working with adults, and then God called me to come home and spend time with my first daughter. And so I ruled by my anger. I had to have control in every area, and did not realize that I was being abusive until one day my daughter was asking me questions and just being disobedient and irritating, and I don't know, I just like flipped. Something in my brain just clicked, and before I knew it, I had gone to her, I had picked her up, and I had thrown her into a chair. It was one of those, big papasan chairs. So she fell into the chair, and of course she cried. And in that moment, I heard God say, "She's my child. How dare you treat her like that?" And for the first time, I understood that my need to have everything in order, my need to have things done the way I wanted them done, my need for my child to obey the very second that I said whatever I said, was more about me than it was about them. I learned in that moment that as a parent, I had a responsibility to control my emotions. And that what just happened was me having a temper tantrum. I was having a temper tantrum like the 5-year-old it has. And so it was just an amazing moment in my life. It was like God gave me clarity about how I should be responding to this beautiful gift that He had given. And that yelling and fussing and controlling was not the way He wanted me to care for her. And all of that just kind of hit me, boom, in that one moment. When I saw, I guess I could see myself, I could see the behavior, and for the first time saw how ugly it was. And so I got down on my knees, and I asked that precious, lovely daughter to please forgive Mommy, because I had not been treating her right, and that God had spoken to me and told me that I was not to ever do that again. And I promised her that I would never do that again. And I knew in my heart in that moment that I would never do that again, because I began to understand the power, the responsibility of being a parent. And so I want to share the story with you that makes me a little vulnerable, yes, but in the hope that if you find yourself in the place where I was, I need you to know that you don't have to stay there. But it really takes energy and effort to change old patterns. I didn't even realize that what I was doing was abusive. I just thought I was a strict parent. But in time, I began to really see that there was a better way to parent. And that it had to become more about my child and what did she need and how could I correct her in a way that would help her be better and not be bitter. And I'm not going to tell you that I didn't have other challenges and struggles, because I did. Because when you've been used to living in complete control, or as much as you can, it's very hard to begin to let the control go. And I learned that a part of the reason that I was abusive was because in order for me to be okay, I needed for things to be in order. I needed for things to be in control. I needed to be able to say, this is going to happen and then that's going to happen. And you're going to do this and then you're going to do that. And so I had to learn that God is in control, not Anita. And that I could trust him, that he would protect my life, that he would protect my heart, that he would take care of me, that I did not have to be the policeman of my life anymore. I didn't have to make sure all the ducks were in a row. I didn't have to make sure that everything lined up and all the gates were closed, and because he was my security. And that I could relax, I could rest in him. Did I have to discipline my children? Absolutely. But I had to learn how to do it in a way that was loving, that was kind, that they could receive the correction and not get focused on me. So here's something else I learned. When we correct our children in anger, they do not see the errors, the things that they have done. What they see is you. They see the anger. And they get focused in on, wow, mommy did this and mommy said that and that wasn't right. And they never have to take a look at what it is they need to get better at. And so if your desire and your heart is for your child to be able to really hear what you're saying, you have to learn how to speak to them in a way that they can hear what they need to fix and not get focused on you and your anger and your abuse. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's necessary. And so I'm sharing this story with you guys so that if you line up, if you've been where I've been, I want to show you that there is a way out. And it's a way of trusting God to take care of you, because the anger really is about fear. It's about fear that things are not going to go the way they should. It's about fear that you're not going to get taken care of the way you need to. And so what I learned is that fear, the root of that fear, is because I did not know how much God loved me. And as I learned how much God loved me, well, guess what? I could give that love to others. And I didn't have to yell and holler and hit and scream and judge anymore. I could rest and trust and be happy. And I was able to create a much happier home because Mama wasn't always so uptight. Mama wasn't always so on guard. I didn't have to always have it my way. So that was the day the abuse stopped. And it's been a journey ever since. The final thing that I learned was the way that I responded to them, anger, abuse, is the same way that they will respond to others. And so however we as moms are responding to our children, even when they're disobedient, we're teaching them. We're modeling for them. And so what I had to learn how to do was, when my child was acting up, when they were cutting up, when they were doing things that I didn't like, I had to learn to speak into their lives and say what God said about them. So it used to be, so-and-so, you're so bad, and you're disobedient, and it doesn't make any sense, and why do you keep trying to hurt me? And I had to change my language, and I had to learn to say, you know what? You are an amazing child, and God has such an awesome plan for your life. You know, when you just told mommy that lie, that's not who you are. You are a child of God, and God's children speak truth. And so I want you to try that again. We're going to start over, and I want you to think before you speak. And I need you to tell mommy the truth, because that's who you are. You're a truth teller. And I would begin to speak into them, not what I could see, but what I knew God intended. And I took away the negative. Over time, it took time, begin to pull that negative stuff out. That even when I had to correct them, I corrected them in love. I learned how to speak in a way that showed honor. I learned how to speak in a way that showed the love of God. And I hate, I'm not saying that the abuse was, the yelling, the screaming, the hollering, the pushing. I'm not going to say that it was, God, used it, but he allowed it. And because my child experienced that mommy, that angry mommy, that pushy mommy, that mommy that had to always have it her way, when God flipped the script and helped me to change, she was so thankful to live in the house with this other person who was open to hear what she had to say. This other person who spoke life and not death. It gave her a contrast, a picture that she wouldn't have had if I already had it together. And she had an appreciation for this mommy in a way that she never would if she had not experienced what happened in the beginning. And so I'm here to encourage you that if you feel like you have to have it all in control, if you feel like you need to use anger and yelling and pushing to keep your children where you want them to be, it will not be successful. It works when they're little because they're just plain scared. But in time, they will rebel against it. And so if that's where you are, at any moment, you can turn around. And God can restore the years, as the Bible says, that the cankerworm has eaten. And it just means that he restores those areas in our lives that have been not good. That he can take time that was wasted or time that wasn't used well, and he can restore it back to us, restore it back to our children. Let me tell you something. Asking for forgiveness with no, you made me do this, if you hadn't have, but just straight up, what I did was wrong, and I am so sorry. And with God's grace, I will never do it again. It's some of the most powerful words you could ever use with your children. They are much more forgiving than you could ever imagine. And sometimes it's hard for us as parents to say I was wrong. But the more we get used to saying I was wrong, actually the more our children will respect us. Because we're actually teaching them that being a human, being a parent, doesn't even mean you have to be perfect. And so God called us to this job of parenting, knowing that we would blow it quite a bit of the time. But his grace covers our shortcomings. And so God knew we weren't perfect. I heard someone say, I don't want God to be disillusioned with me. And the truth is, God never had any illusions about us at all, because he already knew. He knows the beginning from the end. He knows the things we don't even understand about ourselves. So he's not disillusioned. He's not angry. He's not mad. He wants to give us an abundant life so that we can then pass it on to our children. And so that abundant life doesn't have any place for anger, for bitterness. It doesn't have any place for control when it's about us needing things to be a certain way. He wants us to be able to show them the kingdom. And that's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, righteousness, peace. That's what your home should look like. And it only can look like that if it's in you. So God's given you everything you need. Sometimes he gives us things as a present, and we just haven't opened it yet. So if you need some more patience, God's already given it to you. Stop focusing on the fact that you're an angry person and realize it's not about anger. It's about peace. And so I just had to learn how to take the peace that God had already given and learn how to access it, receive it, and use it. And I'm thankful to say that things turned out much better in our home as I was able to let the anger go. And so I see people coming on, and I can't see your comments today, and I don't know why. But I pray you guys have a wonderful day and enjoy your weekend as well. I love you. Goodbye.